Hello and welcome to today's thought for the day. It's Thursday the 6th of August. My name is Suzanne Hoslett. Today we are continuing our ponderings on Psalm 119, which Helen began for us yesterday, looking at the first 40 verses with Helen yesterday. And she told us that Psalm 119 is the longest of all the Psalms, and that it is a psalm written in praise of the law, the Torah. The psalmist wrote the psalm, all 176 verses, in 22 stanzas or sections, verses maybe, one for each letter of the Hebrew alphabet, an acrostic poem. Today we're looking at the next 40 verses, verses 41 to 80, the next 5 verses, or sections, stanzas. As we begin looking at these verses, there are verses in each section where the psalmist seems to be reminding the Lord of his promises to his people, the promises of the covenant law. Verse 41, may your unfailing love come to me, Lord, your salvation according to your promise. And then verse 49, remember your word to your servant, for you have given me hope. I have sought your face with all my heart. Be gracious to me according to your promise, is verse 58. And then verse 65, do good to your servant according to your word, Lord. And then finally in verse 76, may your unfailing love be my comfort, according to your promise to your servant. Of course the Lord loves us with an unfailing love. He comforts us. He gives us hope. He is our salvation. He is gracious to us and does good for us. We don't need to remind him of these facts, but sometimes we probably do need to remind ourselves. May your unfailing love be my comfort, according to your promise to your servant. But although this is a good thing to remind ourselves of today, today I want to focus on just one verse from the 40 that we're covering. It's one that on my first readings of this passage I hardly noticed, but then it suddenly stood out. Verse 54. Your decrees are the theme of my song, wherever I lodge. I suppose that we could take this literally, that the psalmist is just making sure we remember that this psalm is one written in praise of the law. However, I don't think that's what the psalmist meant. I was really struck by that phrase, the theme of my song. If my life, your life, our lives have a song, I wonder what sort of song it is. A ballad, a lament, a party song. Well, maybe that depends on what's going on within your life and my life at the time. And then I wonder what the theme of that song might be, what that song might really be written about. The psalmist was writing of the decrees of the Old Testament law, the covenant law between the Israelite people and the Lord. But for us who live with the New Testament, then what are our decrees? What should our song be written about? In Matthew 22, verses 34 onwards, we read of a time when the Pharisees challenged Jesus about the greatest commandment. And he replied to them, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbour as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. But what does it mean for us to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul and mind? Surely it means that we want to spend time with him, listening to him, hearing his plans for each of us, and following wherever he leads us to do his will. Quality time with quality listening. I'm not sure I'm very good at that most of the time. But what if we do begin to make this the theme of our song each day, starting each day declaring our intent to love the Lord with all our heart, our soul and our mind? Surely because of that love, we can then begin to love our neighbour as ourselves. Some days I know that my song of love for the Lord will be one that I can only whisper, hardly opening my lips. And that's okay, because the Lord knows what is happening. But other days I know it will be one that I want to shout from the rooftops. But the verse continues, wherever I lodge. This started making me think of Paul writing to the church in Philippi. in the letter to the Philippians, writing whilst he was under house arrest, confined and not in a pleasant situation. Paul writes in chapter 4, "I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength." Paul has realised that even when life is difficult, especially when life is difficult, it is possible to be content, to be able to sing his song loud and clear each day. And how does Paul manage that? Because he's put his trust in the unfailing love of his Lord. And it is in that love that Paul is able to find strength to face each day, whatever is happening. May we, like Paul, know and remember that unfailing love of the Lord that brings us comfort, hope and salvation. The unfailing love that gives us strength to face each day, whatever that day may throw at us. And because we know that unfailing love of the Lord, may we all be able to say, "Your decrees are the theme of my song, wherever I lodge." Amen.